Good afternoon, folks. Just want to take a brief look at this coming weekend, which is again it's Confirmation Sunday, and I think it's the fifth Sunday of Easter, and Jesus had already he had brought Lazarus back to life. Remember, Lazarus was dead for 4 days, and he came back to life, and that was sort of an event that really raised a lot of hostility against him, and so things are beginning to in terms of his relationship with the larger community, things are beginning to heat up, and then we know that he washed the feet of the disciples, and soon after that, after washing the feet of the 12, Judas got up and walked out, and Jesus said to Peter that he would never deny him, and Jesus said in return, he says I tell you, the cock will not have crowed before you will deny me, you will disown me 3 times. So that brings us to Sunday's gospel reading, which is part of the final discourse, and the final discourse was not unusual for people in major leadership roles, that if they're going to die or going to retire or whatever, they would have a final discourse or final speech that they would make to those who are their disciples or those who are working for them. So this is what we have in Sunday's part of the final discourse, and as I say, things are beginning to heat up in terms of Jesus' relationship with the larger community. And so it starts off with Jesus saying, I'm sure the disciples are sort of worried in terms of their own lives, and worried in terms of where things are going. And so Jesus says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Have faith in God and faith in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. I go there to prepare a place for you, for I am the way, the truth, and the life. So Jesus is making a promise to them not to be disturbed, not to be troubled, to know that in his Father's house there are many mansions, and that he's going to the Father. And straight away, Thomas intervenes, and he says, Lord, he says, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? And the response of Jesus is, I am, he says, the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. And then almost immediately we find that Philip speaks up, and he says to him, he says, Lord, he says, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. Because you know that in the Gospel of St. John, Jesus talks about his relationship to the Father quite a bit, and so it's probably not unusual that in a situation like this that one of the disciples would say to him, show us the Father, and that will be enough. And the response of Jesus was, he says, Philip, he says, do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? In other words, that to see him, as he says, is to see the Father. So I'd like to go back though to the sentence that's perhaps most controversial, where he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to me but through the Father. No one comes to the Father except through me. That little statement, no one comes to the Father except through me. That statement has been written on that statement over the years, because in a sense what it seems to be saying is that, if you do not believe in him and accept that he is the way, the truth, and the life, that he is the way to the Father, if you don't believe that, and then the possibility of salvation doesn't seem to belong to you. So in many ways, if you take it at face value, it could sort of rule out half the population of the world and even more, because as you know yourselves, it's only Christians who believe in the Trinity, believe that God is triune, God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and that the Father, that Jesus is indeed the way. So in many ways it could rule out half the population of the world. So I suppose the bottom line is there are other ways of getting to God besides in and through a relationship to Jesus. So I just invite you to first of all think about the fact that Jesus is the way. Meaning, in fact, the early Christians were known as it was sort of the title given before they were referred to as Christians. They were often referred to as the way. So Jesus is certainly for us. He is the way. He is the way to the Father. So just make sure you believe that yourself. But then as you accept it and as you do your best to believe it on a daily basis, perhaps you could also reflect upon all those people who don't believe in Jesus and what's their how do they get to heaven? Because certainly, I think God wills that all people be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth. So the other half of the world needs somehow to get to Jesus, and perhaps you might have the answer to the question how in fact they make that happen for themselves and for others. Thank you.